Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 132. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. Good. We're on video now.
We're on video. We have to pretend like we didn't just do 20 minutes of the show and then have to restart.
Yeah, I fucked up. I totally messed up. I kicked the plug out of our recording thing.
It's not a big deal. It's a little ominous because this is the first time we've ever done one on camera as well. But I'm not going to read too much into it because you had said it's actually pretty remarkable that we've done so many episodes. We've done 132 of these plus like 75 episodes of Sacred Symbols plus and a few other ones as well, and never lost anything.
Yeah.
So, we lost 20 minutes of Sacred Symbols for really the first time. Just gone.
Evaporated.
Gone.
You'll never hear that again. Or the first.
Never. We actually we might actually have the footage, so maybe it's at some point it might maybe reemerge. But
maybe
there's nothing very interesting in there, to be honest. It was fine. It wasn't like our best material. It wasn't like the worst material either, but it is interesting to be on video, and this is something people have been asking for a long time. And when I started the show, I really, in my mind, was like, we're never going to do video. So even though I was like, oh, maybe one day we'll do video. I never thought I was going to follow through on it.
Yeah. Video is a bitch, in fairness. Like it's way more to work with. Obviously, you have to look presentable. Which, if you're just recording, you could look as slovenly and disgusting and as malformed as you want. You could be fused to your chair with Dorito dust, like piled on your concave chest. But now we have to look vaguely like humanoids.
Yeah, it's tough because I was actually walking the dog a little bit before, and I was thinking, I don't think I've even put jeans on in months. Like at this point, I don't think I've even worn anything but sweatpants or shorts in months. Just months. And by the way, it's not like I'm actually wearing jeans right now. I'm not. I'm wearing sweatpants. I was just thinking that I don't ever get dressed. And so, I don't know. We actually got a letter about this on Patreon. Might as well read it right now. Aaron Myers wrote into us and said, have you done anything differently because you're on camera? Got dressed, can't pick your nose, tidied up a bit. The very best of luck with the changes. And then he signs it for no reason.
Yeah.
Aaron from jolly old England now. I don't know that I've done much different. I mean, I'm wearing this thing that I wear all the time. This is my soccer dad vestment, and I got like a t-shirt, and my beard is getting really long. So there's that, and I'm just doing the best I can to look as good as I can for the people out there. But otherwise, no, I probably did too little. In fact, I downloaded the screen. I have these huge monitors in front of me, and the Google Doc is so bright in my face on video that I had to download a plugin to make it less bright. And still the lighting is not. And by the way, I know I look like I'm in some sort of Eastern European black site, but I'm just waiting for the builders to come clean stuff up in my house.
You look like Snowden. Just in a random, nondescript, if anybody was really paying attention to the background of where you are, no one would be able to pinpoint oh, I know where those doorknobs originate, or it's just an egg white wall with a door and that's it.
Right, you'll never know. You'll never find me, ever. But maybe one day we'll get some things on the wall and all of that. But I gotta just wait for trying to be very patient with the builders because of COVID. But they are many months behind. Fixing things, so there's nothing hanging on the walls anywhere in my house. It's not just in this room, so it's a little bit frustrating, but thank you for your patience. We didn't want to wait for that. And the other big change, of course, is that Colin's Last Stand, my company, is now known as Last Stand Media, and we're still supported on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. Patreon.com/Colin's Last Stand just brings you to the same place. And we're really excited about this new year and everything that we have lined up for you. And Defining Duke is our new podcast. It's an Xbox podcast co-hosted by Mr. Matty Plays and ACG, YouTubers with over 1 million subscribers combined, and we're super excited for that. And Chris, people have been asking if you're going to be on this show because you're an Xbox gamer, and the answer is yes. We'll have you on the show very, very soon.
Yeah.
in the coming weeks.
Yeah, of course.
Indeed. Yeah. Yes. And of course, when Halo comes out and all of that, I mean, I'm sure you're going to be like a mainstay on that show at that point.
Yeah,
but,
I'm probably going to have to say something, aren't I?
You might have to say a thing or two. And because some people were like, well, first of all, people are like blown away that we got ACG and Mr. Matty Plays to do a show for us, which I'm super excited about as well. They're great. But some people were like, oh, I'm surprised Chris didn't go host that show. And I'm like, well, I kind of selfishly held on to Chris for this show. So we'll share it. I've been saying to people, it's like a constellation and we have little stars now. We can pick them and put them in and recast everyone as we see fit.
It's a little bit of a rotation. I definitely don't have the fortitude to do like 3 shows a week in addition to everything else that I have to do. So
yeah,
just for the sake of my own sanity.
Right. You know, well, that was the assumption, is I would have had to have released you basically to do the show, and I don't want to do that to the show.
I don't want to do that either.
Which is no. So Defining Duke. Subscribe to it on iTunes. It's on Spotify. You can subscribe to it, listen to it anywhere. It's in video already, just like this is now moving forward. And we're actually going to have like kind of clips and stuff like that from the shows on YouTube as well. And of course, you can support us on Patreon. As I said, patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access to this show, both in audio and in video. So we're just giving you more value. See, I didn't ask you for anything. I didn't ask anyone for anything else. All I did was gave you more. That's it.
Yeah.
You know?
Good shit.
I didn't go, you know, people have been saying, Colin, where's the Xbox podcast? Colin, where's the video? And I didn't say to you, well, I need a little something from you first. What I said was, no. You've been so good to me, so let me be good to you. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Well, it's not that
frankly,
complicated.
It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
It's not that complicated, you know? of a premise.
No. I just feel like, you know, we're going to keep, I was going to say cranking out value, but I don't know that I want to necessarily crank out value, at least on camera.
Quality, maybe.
You
know, how about that?
I'm going to be cranking out something.
Cranking something out.
Cranking something out. And by the way, I forgot on the Lost podcast that we did note that we use Riverside to record this, and at least the video. And so Chris is on the bottom of the screen. The camera's up there. And instead of doing the awkward stare, like MSNBC correspondent stare, we're just going to look at each other.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to be looking at the screen because I have to drive the show. Can you guys just I'm already preemptively anticipating the criticisms because I haven't been on camera in like 4 years.
People don't actually want you to look directly at the camera, though. Like, I don't know. I've been doing YouTube for a long time, and I noticed that every time I look at the camera, it just feels wrong. I always look at like the screen next to it, or like even just completely away from it. You know, and that seems to be more comfortable for me, more comfortable for them because they don't feel like I'm staring deep into their souls.
Right.
Which nobody wants. Nobody wants that intrusion. You know, we're not the NSA here. You know,
that is quite the intrusion. You know, to go into one's soul, breach one's soul, the outer moat of one's being. It's no good. All right, let's see here. I'm looking at my notes here. We've talked about this. Oh, Sacred Symbols Plus. It's our weekly supplemental podcast. We did 2021 predictions, which was really fun. We brought Dustin in for that. And so we touched on a lot of different things, which was really cool, and got your guys and gals predictions in there as well. Next week's is all going to be about PlayStation TV shows and movies, like hypotheticals. So we know we have HBO The Last of Us and the Uncharted movie and this rumor of a Twisted Metal show. What would we want to see? What would you want to see? We're really excited to talk about that and get that out there. And yeah, Sacred Symbols Plus is doing great. So thank you all out there for the support and love and kindness of the show. And I should note, too, that over the holidays, in case you missed it, we did get the Final Fantasy VII Remake spoiler cast and review discussion
We did.
So go check it out. And never, ever talk to me about it again, by the way. I'll look at the camera for that. Don't talk to me about it. I don't want to hear about it anymore. All right. By the way, I didn't realize how nerdy Final Fantasy VII Remake was in terms of the fan theories and all of that. It's quite Kingdom Hearts-ish. Oh. I almost like the game less after reading the feedback we got.
Just anything associating it with Kingdom Hearts makes it worse.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, it's Final Fantasy. That's already half associated with Kingdom Hearts in a way.
That's true. I guess it's more like the Nomura story collapsing in on itself, like a dying star kind of thing.
Right.
Let's see. Oh, Habroxia 2. Just want to make a note. The game that I wrote and co-produced, Habroxia 2, coming to PS4 and Vita, as well as Xbox One, Switch, and PC, February 3rd. So right around the corner. Review codes are already out in the wild.
You got that game done already? That's pretty wild. You're going to have an article about crunch time at At Lilymo.
At Lilymo Games. Yeah. Yeah, I can't believe we got the game done so quickly, but I really, it is we because I own 49% of the studio, but I basically just write the games and like kind of do the creative, and Barry builds the game. So, you know, I'm really hanging on to that man's coattails in a lot of ways. I'm very blessed to be on board with him. He's great. Now, we just got off the holidays. Chris and I did, and of course the rest of the world did as well. Timothy Bryant wrote into us and said, "Happy New Year's, boys. Congrats on the success thus far, and I'm very excited to seeing your gorgeous fucking faces in the video portion of the show." Look how big my beard is. It's bushy. It looks very pubic.
Yeah, it's a very Civil War
I might say.
Aesthetic kind of you got going on.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's good. Well, I'm in Central Virginia now, so,
Yeah.
you know, I'm amongst the ghosts of the Civil War generals. You know, the Burnsides and the Grants, et cetera, and so on. But, of course, I'm bringing up Northern generals because I really hate the Confederate general. But all right, so let's see here. Blah, blah, blah. My simple question, boys, is this. What was your favorite part of your holiday break? Was it a gift, having to relax, playing games? My favorite part was I got a girlfriend New Year's Day that I believe will be here for the long run. 2021 is starting off very strong, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. What was your favorite part of whatever break you were able to take over there in California?
Oh man, I just sort of hung out with the same group of people that I've been hanging out with since this pandemic started. It's just like a handful of like 3 other people who also work from home who just don't know anybody else but us. And we just sort of hang out. I hung out with them for like Christmas and New Year's, and we just watched a bunch of movies. We watched like Gremlins 1 and 2 for New Year's, but something that I forgot. Have you ever seen The Santa Claus 3? With
No,
Martin Short
definitely not.
as
No,
Jack
no.
Frost. It is,
No.
and I don't say this lightly. It is the worst experience that I've ever lived through. I couldn't believe how bad that movie was, even despite how much I hated those other ones. The premise of Tim Allen killing Santa Claus and just becoming him, and it's just like treated as this like wholesome thing already, is kind of bothersome. But wow, what a terrible holiday movie.
I'm not even sure I knew there was a sequel, nonetheless, a third one.
Yeah,
So,
it's off-putting. It's unsettling in every way.
Yeah, I like Tim Allen as well. So, you know, Tim Allen scores extra points in my book just being involved in things. It's like Adam Sandler. Like, it's got to be pretty bad for me to really accept that Adam Sandler.
It's the opposite
bad, you know, and it's been pretty bad. It's been pretty bad.
It's the opposite for me with Tim Allen. I like things less.
Oh.
Because I think
Yeah,
of that stand up
yeah.
where he's just like it's just all of his stand up is like I was opening up the engine of my lawnmower and I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you barking at the audience?
That was his thing, you know, on Home Improvement and all
I
of that.
know.
That was his, you know, Tim the Toolman Taylor.
I get it.
Well, I don't think a lot of people do. And that show that he does now, that was on Fox, and I think got picked up or was on ABC and is on Fox now. Pretty good as well.
Does he bark in it?
Where he owns like an outdoor shop, like a hunting shop or something.
Of course.
Yeah. Last Man Standing, I think it's
Yeah.
called. Well, Timothy got a girlfriend, which is fun,
Mm-hmm.
and that's nice. I wasn't really relaxing because I had to get everything kind of set up. In fact, I was remarking to Micah that I'm kind of stressed out, like crazy stressed this week, because I was really looking forward to the holiday season to get some time off, and I don't know what I was thinking because I also knew that I was going to begin this new phase of Last Dance. So, you know, I feel like now it's just so far away until I can get a moment again like that, and I kind of like let it slip through my fingers. And so now this, and by the way, I fucked up my back somehow. I don't know what's going on.
You're all messed up.
Yeah. So I got to kind of get myself organized here a little bit, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and then go from there. So thank you for writing in, Timothy, and happy holidays to everyone. Welcome to 2021. It's worse than 2020 so far. A few things I wanted to point out to people before we get going. Kotaku has a story up that I found when I was researching the show that I wanted to kind of just bring to people's attention. PS4's Spectacular Dreams is hurting from a lack of players. It's basically just a pretty long form story about dreams and why it seems to be failing. And it's pretty reiterative of the things we've talked about a lot on the show or speculated on. And it was obvious that was going to happen. But the disappointing part of the story is that neither Sony nor Media Molecule talked to Kotaku for it. They refused to do so. But it is a conversation with a lot of creators on there, and basically it seems like it's just a small group of creators and almost no one that plays anything. So it's not good.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, so we talked about the 2021 predictions, Sacred Symbols Plus episode. I wanted it to be somewhat positive or at least neutral. But one of my predictions was going to be that this is the year that there might be layoffs at Media Molecule. I hope that doesn't happen. That'll be awful. But it seems like Dreams is so underpopulated that almost no one cares
It's still
about
just on PlayStation too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they didn't even port it to PC, which would have been like the smart thing to do pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. Yeah, we unfortunately kind of called a lot of this.
Yeah, I'm surprised more people didn't. I think David Jaffe gave us a shout out, I think, a couple months ago for saying like from all the media he listens to, that no one was really talking about Dreams being set up to be an obvious failure because people were so drinking the Kool-Aid rather. You can eat the Kool-Aid, I guess, if you want. But they were drinking the Kool-Aid about how great it was, but without an audience, it doesn't matter how great it is. And I'm still of the mind that most people don't want to make games on the console. They want to play them.
Yeah. So. You know what's wild and what kind of is an amazing missed opportunity to me is Dreams should have been the PS Plus game for PS5. You know? Like, I feel like that should have been there instead of like Bug Snacks, or maybe like in addition to Bug Snacks, but like anything to push that into the hands of more people for very little money, or like for ostensibly free from the player's perspective. They could have done something. I still maintain that game should have been on not PS3. PC from the get-go, but
yeah, I think so too. I think one of the comments under the story at Kotaku too is saying that this would even be a nice little game for them to bring to everything, just to see if they could and if it would matter. I think that's a risk because I think it would still fail. I think it still opens up possibilities and opportunities for the game to succeed, but I still don't think anyone's really going to care about it, even if it was on Switch. You know, like if you're on Switch, for instance, you're going to play like Mario Maker or something. You're not going to play Dreams, or you're going to play one of the many great games. And it's the same thing with Xbox and all that. So I don't know. It's sad that happened, but yeah, predictable nonetheless. And so we hope it rebounds, but I just hope Media Molecule gets an opportunity, and I think they will, to make a game again. And I think this was a 10-year-long mistake. All right. Let's see. Oh, by the way, the Little Big Planet 2 came out in January of 2011, as I recall. So it's been 10 years since they released a AAA game.
Wow. That's
all right. Let's see. Oh,
that's a while.
What'd you say?
That's a while.
They released Tearaway on Vita and later brought it to PS4, but that was a small team that did that. So it's a long time to not release a game, basically. And I can't imagine how much money Dreams lost, but we'll never know. All right. The other thing I wanted to bring up here, a couple other things. Persona's soundtracks are now on Spotify. It's Persona 2, 3, 4, and 5, the Persona Dancing All Night games, and everything else. This is a huge deal because Persona games are renowned for their music. And as a player only of Persona 4 Golden and none of the others, and only for 25 hours, I have Signs of Life stuck in my head on repeat still to this day. Excellent music. Just wanted to call people's attention to that. And there's also a story going around. We've talked about Net Your Rosie on this podcast in the past. Net Your Rosie was the PS1, basically a machine that developers could buy for about $800 and make their own games on it. And a couple of them made to market. I think Devil Dice was one of the games that made it to market. That was made on Net Your Rosie. But there was a game in 1998 made in Japan called Magic Castle that has basically just been isolated and never came out. And it just made it out for PS1 emulators. So if you play on PS1 emulators, I actually don't, but if you do play on PS1 emulators, this Magic Castle game kind of reminds me a little bit of Azure Dreams or another one of these early roguelites, and it's worth looking up if you want to check it out. It's cool. Did you see any of the stories about that making the rounds?
No.
This old Net Your Rosie game? I thought it was pretty neat because Net Your Rosie was this iconic and interesting thing for PlayStation audiences in the 90s, and no one had one.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't think I've ever seen one in person. Maybe
were
I have.
They,
Maybe
were
we had
they
one
blue?
at IGN.
Or am I remembering that wrong?
Yeah, they were like navy blue PS1s.
Because I remember seeing them somewhere. Might have been like on the early internet. that I saw him. I was like, oh, that's cool as hell. Blue PS1. I want that thing.
Yeah.
I didn't even care that it was.
Yeah,
I didn't even care that it was like what it was. Like that it was like this kind of like makeshift dev kit. I was just more like, oh man, that's such a good color for the PS1. It was pretty damn good looking.
Someone had said in one of the stories I read about it that was kind of like a really early indie movement that actually deserves kind of a story to be told about it. Very similar to Xbox Live putting out the Xbox Live disc, the arcade disc. Like that's like a really important moment and in indie development. So nonetheless, Gino Viteri wrote into us. We had a few questions about this over the weeks. I wanted to kind of squeeze this one in here. Says, Sup Cuties. Chris, you've mentioned several times about how people should copy games that are great like Shadow of the Colossus. Have you heard of Praey for the Gods? And it's Praey. Yes, that's spelled right. I think you'd like it. Look it up, bitch. That's what he says. Look it up, bitch. This is from No Matter Studios. It's coming to PS4 and PS5 soon, apparently. Have you looked this game up?
So we've brought this up before, long time ago, when I made the exact same statement where I was like, I want more people to copy this game, and back then people were telling me, oh, Praey of the Gods. And I had known about it for years at that point. Praey of the Gods I've known about for a really, really long time, specifically because, my eyes are going to be on anything that's going to be like trying to emulate Shadow of the Colossus. But it is 2021 now, and I still can't play it. So I don't know what the hell's going on really with that. It is a Kickstarter game, or at least it started as a Kickstarter game. I don't know if it's since been picked up or whatever. But no, I want that game to come out, and I want that game to be good. But the reality is, it's been so long that like I don't even know if I don't even know if I have all that much faith in it at this point. I haven't heard anything new about it in a while. It's taken so long, and it looked pretty close to done when I saw it years ago too. Like it didn't even look like it was like one of those, you see like games on Kickstarter all the time or on these crowdfunding platforms where it's like, here's like the early stages. It's very clearly pre-alpha or whatever the hell. No, back then it looked like it was in beta, like it was mostly done, and it's been probably like 3-4 years since I've heard about it.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the information now. The Kickstarter happened in mid-2016. Mm-hmm. And then I did forget about this, that it was called Praey of the Gods, Prey, and then ZeniMax actually contested that based on their trademark for Praey.
That is ridiculous.
And then they had to change it to Praey for the Gods. And then, so I guess it's on Steam Early Access, but in October or I guess November they said that it'll come out Q1. Right. So anytime now. Maybe.
That's good. I'm over the whole early access thing. I don't think I'm gonna do that anymore. But
I've never done it. Right. I don't know that I've played almost anything in early access.
I've done it a couple times. There were things that I thought were interesting, but I'm gonna wait for this thing to be done, and if it's really that close, then hell yeah, I'm definitely on board, and I'll check it out, and I'll be the first person to talk about it here.
Dane Farley wrote in with this one. We can talk about this before we get into what we've been playing. He says, "Hey guys, would you play the game where you flip a coin and heads you get $50 million, tails you die? Love the content, guys, and I look forward to a good conversation about this." I like how he says, "Would you play the game?" Like as if this is a game people play. Would you play the game?
This is an established property.
Flip a coin, heads $50 million, tails die. Would you do it?
I don't know if I trust fate that much. I'm relatively unlucky. I don't know if I would believe that. I know I would die. Like I would just die. Like even if it somehow landed the right way, I feel like the universe would just glitch out and just think I got it wrong. Also, $50 million. I don't know. Like I think that's a lot. That's a ton of money. But it's also like, I don't know. If I don't die, I could potentially get there. If I die though, I'm not really gonna have much of a chance at $50 million. I would pass that. Is it like, so is this a game or is this like a coin that's imbued with this ability that like you pass it and it just becomes the game for that person? Because I'd probably,
I don't know. That's
because
a good question.
If that was the case, I'd probably find acquaintances of mine and be like, hey, you want play this game, and then some of them will lose, some of them will win, but like at least I'll know people with $50 million.
Right. So you'll manipulate the situation. I mean, that seems like, he didn't speculate that or specify.
It's not against the rules, as far as I'm concerned.
That's not as far as we know. Not as far as we know. I don't think I would do it. It's too risky.
Yeah.
Too risky. Like, because you have, we're very sardonic and dark on this show, I know, but you don't have anything without life.
Yeah.
Right? It all starts with life. As much as I say I want to kill myself, I'm saying it in jest.
Yeah.
When I say like, I would rather eat just as an example, I'd rather eat a gun barrel than ever play game X again. Well, I don't really mean it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I would one day. I don't know. It's horrible.
Yeah,
it's
no,
horrible.
I mean, like, I want to die, but I don't want to die,
Right. I get. Yeah. I understand exactly what you mean. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about what we've been playing, and we haven't talked about this in a while because we haven't been together here. Rob Kavazna wrote in about this on Patreon. It says, "Dear Daddy Time, Colin, and small fragile baby New Year, Chris. I hope you enjoyed your break. Did you spend any time delving into your backlogs? Do you foolish for not?" This is what it said. I usually correct everyone's broken ass English, but I guess I didn't do it here. Because it says, "Do you foolish?"
Do you feel foolish, I guess.
It's like Charlie from like trying to read Charlie's writing from Always Sunny. Do you foolish for not getting to any particular game sooner? Do you feel? I imagine what you mean. Happy New Year! Excited for all the new Last Stand media content. So I did delve into the backlog a little bit, but I want to start with you, Chris, because it seems like you focused all your energies on one game in particular.
I did, yeah. I'm still playing Cyberpunk 2077. I don't have that much to say about it. I still really like it. But honestly, like much like you, I found myself like really busy, and I felt like I couldn't really give myself the appropriate mental time to get into a new game while I still had Cyberpunk like in the back of my mind. Like, and I'm at this point in Cyberpunk where it's like point of no return. Like you cannot, once you pass this, it's fucking done. And so I'm thinking like, okay, I really like this game. I want to keep it going as much as possible. So I've just been doing all of the side activities. I've been trying to get every single thing on the map done. But I also don't really want the experience to end. So I've just sort of been like playing it a little bit one day and then like putting it away, being like, I can't finish it anymore. And then coming back to it like 5 days later and like playing a little bit more, getting like 2 missions done. And I'm like, all right, I'm done. Because I'm trying to like really stretch the value of this thing out. But I don't have that much left to say about it. I enjoy it. You can't get it on the PlayStation Store now, so missed out, I guess.
You can still buy it physically, I think, though.
Probably. Yeah, I'm sure you can buy it physically. Yeah. But
if you really
it
want
is still a game that I can't recommend because it is not the most stable experience. But it is a game that I recommend everybody keep their eye on when this next gen patch goes live, when like the actual next gen version is properly released, and when this gets when all the stuff gets ironed out, because it is something really cool. I really like it even in its kind of gimped state. So I can only imagine that I'll like it even more when it's like actually finished. But because it's not finished, I can't sit here and be like, go buy it. I just can't.
You can't give it a rousing endorsement.
No, I can give it a rousing, this is good, this will be amazing in a couple months' time. But that's as much as I can.
That's good. So you don't often hear a rousing.
Yeah.
So it's good. So I'm excited about it. I mean, the game looks really cool, but I'm resolved at this point to just wait for the PS5 version. Like I've come this far. Yeah. There's other games to play. I don't need to play it. And I imagine it's going to be in great shape on PS5 because they have something to really prove, at least to fix, to make that the greatest version it can be. Yeah. And maybe we'll get some DLC or something in there as well.
That would be nice. Yeah. I think, that's the smartest call. I am though looking forward to the next thing that I'm going to be diving into once I'm done with Cyberpunk. And I think, I'll probably bust through the rest of it. I'll be like, all right, I'll finish it. I'll be a man and end this experience. It's done. I had my time with it, but I'm excited to jump into Immortals because a lot of people have been recommending it to me. And I really have been wanting to play it. I just I didn't think I could juggle that and Cyberpunk at the same time. I felt like I would have been too much like, I want to play the other thing while I'm playing this thing, and I can't do it.
It's funny you bring this up because I actually wrote in my notes here that so I started Up Immortals finally a few days ago, and I was so turned off by the opening cinematic that I just stopped playing.
Really?
I don't know what I was expecting. It's like I know it's supposed to be very good, and I will go back to it, but it was like so goofy and dumb. I guess I didn't know that that's what it was. I'm kind of blaming it for what it is, but it was just like,
no.
I was sitting with Micah and I'm like, I'm not playing this, you know. Like,
no, I'm very aware that it's a very silly, it's a very ridiculous game.
Yeah, I just didn't know. I don't know what I was thinking, but it looks fun to play. I mean, the gameplay I saw looks fun. So one day I'll come to that, because I actually did the same thing with Crosscode, which is a role-playing game where I was like, I'm not in the mood.
Listen,
for this
man.
either, so.
Admittedly, Immortals: Phoenix Rising doesn't sound like a comedy game. You know?
No, it sounds like a dead-ass serious game, to be perfectly honest. Gods and Monsters kind of sounded. I thought was supposed to be. I don't know what I had in my mind. I was like, oh, this kind of sounds like some sort of old Greek type, and that's what it is. But
it's like just a jokey.
It's like, silly.
It's like a very silly kind of jokey, like kind of tongue-in-cheek thing, and it just doesn't have the name. It would be like. It would be like seeing the name Schindler's List and thinking that it was like, oh, this must be like a romantic comedy about a list of exes or something. You know,
right.
like it's just, and then you put it on, it's like, oh.
And you're like, oh, it's that kind of list.
It's the Holocaust. You know, very different tones.
So that's a different kind of list entirely, isn't it? So Schindler's List is an entirely different kind of list from almost any other kind of list, like a grocery list.
Yeah, it's very different.
And I did mention, I kind of ran into a dead end with the game Crosscode, which is a really cool looking SNES style Japanese role playing game, but it's pretty puzzle oriented. You can tell from the beginning, and I'm like, I don't need a game to make me feel stupid right now. So that's what I was not looking for either. And then, so here's what I played over the break. I was talking about it the last time we recorded live, but Shakedown Hawaii, I platinumed. Awesome game. Love it. Really highly recommended. Final Fantasy VII Remake, as I said, we got the spoiler cast and review discussion out. Beat it. Awesome. Loved it. BioShock Infinite. I got to get ready for Knockback. We're doing a Knockback on that in the coming weeks, me and my brother. So I had never played, or I never gotten through all the way through the PS3 version, nor platinum the PS3 version. So I broke out the PS3, platinum BioShock Infinite.
How's that? How is that? I have to ask. The PS3 version.
The load times are excruciating, but the game holds up really well. I mean, it's. I'll talk about it more on that episode, but BioShock Infinite is so much better than and I realized this a few years ago when I finally beat it, but it's so much better than I don't know what I was thinking. Like, there are a few things where I'm like, what were you thinking with BioShock Infinite? Why did you not like it? I don't understand. Like, what didn't you like about it? It was just, I don't even remember it.
Yeah, like, I loved it immediately, and I remember getting a lot of flack for it at the time. I remember being like, why do you like this? This isn't BioShock. And it's like, yeah, I guess it isn't, but it's good. You know, like, it's like one of those things where it's like, I always felt like, when you have like something that's like a long-standing series, it's like, okay, yeah. When you get to like, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto 11 or whatever the hell, and it's like, and it's a first-person shooter, and it's like linear and shit, and it's like completely like different than like what the old GTAs are. I understand like a frustration and being like, okay, well, this isn't really what I go to GTA for. But with BioShock being like, I don't even really consider BioShock a series. Like, at least not like when Infinite came out, because I didn't really pay attention to 2, because I was like, oh, Ken's not involved, whatever. So there's really only one BioShock game in my mind. So like there being another one that's completely different means that they're not really breaking any tradition here. Is kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah.
Which is probably also...
I remember thinking it was too much of a shooter. That's what I remember thinking. I'm like, this is too action.
That's what I loved. I love that. I love BioShock too. I also, by the way, I should say that like I think BioShock 1 is better. I think BioShock 1 is like phenomenal. I think it's like one of the best games like probably of all time. But Infinite's pretty damn good. And I don't know. It sucks that people don't recognize that. I think people think it's like pretentious, and maybe it is, but I really love it. I don't care. You know.
Well, we were talking about the coin flip before. You can get one like the Lutece coins that they flip, and sometimes depends on, no matter what you select, it's always the the wrong one in the game. Yeah, I totally agree. It's different, but I didn't appreciate it at the time, and I appreciate it a lot more. So we'll talk about that more. But it's the second time I platinumed it because I already did it on PS4 as well. And then Danganronpa, I started just playing Danganronpa again on Vita, the first one, Trigger Happy Havoc. I want to get the platinum in it, and it's funny because Alex Landry wrote into us and he said, Colin, when are you going to play and give us your thoughts on Danganronpa V3? It's overdue. Do it for Dustin, Maddie, and the people. I agree. It is long overdue. I've not played the third Danganronpa, mostly because I just kind of wanted to replay the first two again. I don't even think I beat the second one all the way through. And then I also wanted to play the Ultra Despair Girls, like the weird third-person shooter that they made, which I played a little bit of as well. So I'm just starting from the beginning, and it's all, Alex said, it's all culminating with that Danganronpa V3 playthrough. So be patient. Please be excited for that. And then I started. So when I Immortals, I was like, I'm ready to get into that. Wasn't into Crosscode. So then I finally, it was actually half off, or it is half off when we're recording this. Still is 13 Sentinels Aegis Ram, which is the new Vanillaware game, and it's really good. I'm very early in it. It's a visual novel, and it's like a visual novel meets like a real-time strategy game.
Oh.
It's about kaiju attacking like the city and kids in mechs fighting them back. That's what it's about. It's super cool.
That's kind of cool.
But they have like a high school life too. So you like go around. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. Now I forgot. It was also brought up in the Lost episode earlier that we recorded that you're having an eye problem.
Yeah.
Sorry. Squinting a lot. You look like a buccaneer.
I keep forgetting. Like I forgot that that this was in the recording that we lost. I have this thing sometimes. I haven't had it in a long time, but it happened today, of course, when we do video for the first time, because it always happens on like key days. I remember the first time it happened was the day of E3. So I had to watch E3 like half crying. But sometimes I'll just like go to sleep and I won't realize it, but like one of my eyes will be like open a little bit like all night and it'll dry out. So I'll wake up just like with like searing like insane pain in my eye and it just won't go away for hours on end. So if I'm like squinting a lot or like if I look like I'm in pain, it's because I am a little bit, but
yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's whatever. But, my eyes are fucked beyond recognition anyway.
The show must go on.
Exactly.
Yeah. You should wear blue blockers or something if you need
blue blockers?
Yeah.
What is that?
Aren't they the ones aren't they the ones that the old people used to wear? The ones that go around
maybe.
like that?
I think I just need eye drops, but I don't have any because I haven't had this problem in so long that I misplaced them.
You know what I'm talking about? Like the old person eyeglasses that go all and like block the whole, like almost like Geordie LaForge.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. All right. Well, that's enough of that. I don't know what that was, but let's get into the news and talk about the things that we need to catch up on here. There's not too much, but a few important things happened over the holidays, and this is why I didn't want to do Game of the Year yet, because I wanted to at least touch on these things so we don't have to do it at a later date. Mm-hmm. So let's begin with number one. It's not exactly clear how well PlayStation 5 is doing, but a recent report indicates that it's performing very well indeed. Not a huge surprise considering they're nearly impossible to find at market. Website Digitimes cites so-called industry sources noting that PS5 pushed 3.4 million units in its first 4 weeks of availability. Website Push Square notes that PS4 sold 4.2 million units in 6 weeks, so even when taking into account possibly falling momentum, PS5 is almost certainly outpacing PlayStation 4 so far. What's even crazier, though, is Sony's reported bullishness in its 2021 fiscal year, where it expects to reach 16.8 million PS5 sold at minimum, according to the source. Of course, while Digitimes is a reliable source, these are also rumors. But with Sony steadfastly refusing to announce numbers of its own, we're left to speculate. PS5 sales should only increase with word that the console will launch on February 2nd in India, the world's second most populated country. And news out of Japan, as relayed by Kotaku, indicates other recent rumors we've discussed on the show were true. In Japan, anyway, Sony has indeed cut all PS4 production outside of the standard PS4 Slim model. This may be good news for PS5, though, especially in Japan, where it's been widely reported that PS5 sales are softer than ever when compared to historical PlayStation consoles unit pushed in Sony's home country. So there's a few things to get into here, Chris.
Yeah.
Let's split it up here. Liam Wilson wrote into us and said, the PS5 launch in Japan has been the worst in terms of sales in PlayStation's history. Do you think this is because Sony is neglecting their home turf in favor for the more profitable Western markets? Is this a smart move? Because I can't help but feel neglecting Japan will only drive Japanese studios to abandon PlayStation in the long run. I feel like I've been seeing these stories about PS5's performance in Japan, which is not good comparably. There's actually a really interesting bar graph that shows like how precipitous the fall is. I think even compared to like definitely PSP and even Vita. And I don't know that it really matters to them. There's 100 million people in Japan or so, and the worse their PlayStation sales have gotten, the better PlayStation has done. So it's not to say they don't want Japanese support. It's just to say that it's really not essential to their, and I mean Consumer Report, it's really not essential to their bottom line. And where developers can go to Switch, and they are, but where else are they going to go? PC, I guess they can go to as well, but I don't know. I'm not too worried about these Japanese sales. What do you think about this whole tapestry that I've painted here?
Yeah, I don't know.
About PS5 sales.
It's interesting. I don't know if it's... See, the thing, it's always weird talking about like different countries and their economies, because quite honestly, I don't know what the hell's going on in Japan that might also factor into this. There could be contexts that we're not aware of. Like I have no idea even how they're handling the pandemic. You know, like I don't even really understand what it is they're doing, or like how drastically it's affected their local economies, like how their culture like how important a console would be deemed in that culture in a situation like this. I feel like a lot of that could also play into this as well. Although that is just kind of like a wild guess. I do think that there is a potential feeling of maybe neglectfulness on their part. I'm sure like I mean the fact that the PS4 launched over here before it launched in Japan is that's a pretty wild thing in and of itself, and that was 7 years ago. So, you know, maybe that has something to do with it. I think honestly though, I think you're right. I think it's not really that important, because I think they know that they're eventually going to sell a ton of PS5s in Japan anyway, because their only real competition is Switch, and they're not really offering the same thing. I really do think it's more of this is an expensive machine in a time of crisis, and maybe the Japanese are a little bit more disciplined than we might be.
Yeah, I also think that the culture is moving away from consoles. I just think that there's a space issue there, and
that's true.
A third of the population lives in Tokyo. It's impossible to, you know, I'm not even kidding around, but like the PS5's huge. It's like it would be, I watch some of these really interesting shows on YouTube about people's homes in Japan and how they live. And it's like every fucking square foot in these places count, man. Sometimes if people are living in only 80 square feet, and your PlayStation 4 is 1 square foot. You know, so that might have something to do with it too. People, and then you have to have the TV to accommodate it, and so I think that has something to do with it as well there. And I think Switch is just a really powerful force over there as well, because they play mobile games. It's the same reason why PSP did so well in the Game Boy and DS lines and in the GBA line, and then still why Vita is still getting new games. I mean, even that sells there. So I don't know. I think this is a situation where Sony's being strangely quiet. I don't quite know why they're not talking about how much they've sold. I think it's weird at this point. And I feel like we all kind of know that it's selling very well, and so you kind of have to look for a problem. And this is the problem in quotes is, well, it's not selling well in Japan, and it's like, well, who really cares? You know? And it's worth noting that, and you made a great point that PS4 came to Japan late, but they actually flipped the script and made Japan get it day and date with the US and some other places, like Canada, the same day that we got PS5. So they tried to show them love. The other thing that I wanted to talk about from this news, Calvin Kirstein wrote into us about. He says, "Hey fellas, and Happy New Year. First of all, congratulations on the expansion of Last Stand." Thank you, Calvin. "You guys truly listen to your fans, and that's really appreciated. Last Stand is easily the best bang for one's buck. It's a no-brainer to keep giving you money each month. Because you guys work so diligently on all this great content." He did say that. I didn't just write that and make that up. So Sony's strategy is to simply have one PS4 SKU available in Japan, and rightly or wrongly, they've gone with the Slim. If you guys were making the decisions at Sony, imagine the possibilities, and had to choose one PS4 SKU to keep on sale, which one would you opt for? Perhaps Sony is looking to attract buyers with the cheapest possible option. Curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Thanks for all your hard work and stay safe. So we reported on the news a few weeks ago that the PS4 Pro website in the US says that it's sold out and that they don't intend on restocking it. And then we got this news that the PS4 Pro is essentially canceled in Japan. So I imagine this is going to eventually touch everywhere. How do you feel about the perceived abandonment of PS4 Pro in lieu of the PS4 Slim model, which is basically the 2013 version of PS4 truncated?
I think it makes sense. I think, honestly, like I think the PS4 Slim is, it's not a powerful machine. It's not going to run like the latest games. It's not going to be like a performance beast. It's built to, play the games that are on PlayStation 4 already, and it's the cheapest one to buy, and it's potentially, like I would imagine, the cheapest PlayStation 4 to make at this point. In its life cycle. I'm sure the parts are way cheaper. I'm sure it just makes more financial sense to take all of the money and time that you would spend making something like a PS4 Pro that's pretty strong, but still not as strong as a PS5 and more expensive to make than a PS4 Slim. It just makes more sense to reallocate those resources into making more PS5s, which are more in demand, more technologically relevant. And making sure that if people still want a PlayStation 4 for, maybe they're not really all that interested in PS5, or maybe they're not all that interested in performance heavy machines. Maybe they just want a small machine to play games and get people on the PlayStation platform. I think the PS4 Slim makes a ton of sense in that regard.
Yeah, I agree with you. Since they did have this half step, you have to kind of remove the compelling nature of the half step in order to get people to take the full step. So it kind of does make sense. But I also think it reaffirms, Chris, what I've been saying, which is that PS4 Pro's popularity is probably very overrated.
Yeah.
Because if it was still selling, I think that they would keep making them. I feel like they've always been rare, and I feel like they've always underproduced them. And I don't know that it was because they were selling. I just don't believe it. Because when you get outside, like, I don't know many people, I guess, outside of gaming circles that play games, but I don't feel like the PS4 Pro is like a prevalent piece of hardware unless you're like a nerd. Why would you go in and spend? And that's the other thing, is that this thing is basically comparably priced, like we said, to PS5. So
yeah, no, exactly.
I think that
it didn't even the most baffling exclusion to me, and I mentioned this even when they first announced this thing, and when we first learned what the machine even had, like, in its components. You built a half step next gen PlayStation 4 that's supposed to like run games at 4K. That was like the whole thing. It was like upscaled 4K, and like that was the whole push at the time. And you had like performance modes and stuff like that. But you didn't have a 4K Blu-ray player in it? Like, why? That seems like such an obvious thing to overlook, considering how important Blu-ray was to PS3, considering how important DVD was to PS2. And I'm sure, like, yeah, it's probably not going to be a huge deal for a lot of people, but I can say, like, if I'm, especially back when these machines were coming out, when the Xbox One X was coming out and when the PS4 Pro was coming out, like, if I was giving somebody like a recommendation on which one to get if they just wanted like a machine that had value, I would have been like, yeah, the One X is stronger, and it's a 4K Blu-ray player. Physical media is not super relevant, but that's still something that should be in that thing. Like, it's a 4K marketed console that doesn't have a 4K Blu-ray. It's very bizarre. And I think that's probably the reason why it didn't sell as well as it could have. It is also just this weird kind of generational half step that really only people who give a shit about performance and stuff like that would be interested in the first place. So it doesn't even... I don't know, the fact that it doesn't even have that casual appeal of like, oh, I can watch movies at 4K native, I feel like probably didn't do it too well. Didn't do it too many favors.
Yeah, I think they also introduced with the PS5 2 new SKUs. So I think from a marketing standpoint, it's like, well, now there's 2 PS4s and there's 2 PS5s.
Yeah. They don't separate. I think there's just do they separate? We don't know how many PS4 Pros sold versus how many PS4s, do we?
No, they've never broken it down. That's why I speculate that they've not sold very well. That they usually hide their numbers. Like we said, like they started talking about handhelds when the Vita started failing. They started folding PSP and Vita numbers together so that they would obfuscate what the real numbers were, and then you didn't know. And it's very much like what Microsoft used to do with Xbox One. Like we used to have to go into EA numbers, and they would say something like, "Well, 120 million next gen consoles have been sold," and then we'd be like, "Well, Sony announced 78 million PS4, so this is how many Xbox Ones were sold. It's like we have to do all this annoying math to figure things out with Sony, and meanwhile Nintendo, no matter how they're doing in their financials, talks to like the 100,000th as to how many games they sell. Like even in the Wii U era, It was awesome. They're like a bastion of proper data, which is nice. But no, I guess they don't have to tell us. But we await official numbers. They have to come soon. They're definitely going to come before the fiscal year is over, which is March. So the end of March. But I imagine they'll say something before then. And it could be something like where they're like, we could have sold a lot more and these numbers are disappointing to us. But I doubt that that's the case. So we'll see what happens. All right, this other one's a pretty big piece of news that I actually didn't see many people talking about, which surprised me. Number 2. Over the holidays, the widely expected class action lawsuit, the first of what could be many, was filed against CD Projekt over December's Cyberpunk 2077 and related fiasco. To briefly catch everyone up, Cyberpunk 2077 finally launched on December 10th on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC, and both the PS4 and Xbox iterations of the game were significantly botched. This particular class action suit, brought by a man named Andrew Tramp and open to other potential litigants, is being handled by the Los Angeles-based Rosen law firm and doesn't actually have anything to do with people who bought the game, but rather investors in the company. The suit charges that individual executives at CD Projekt openly, regularly, and routinely made misleading statements about Cyberpunk 2077's playability and viability, driving its stock price substantially higher. Sadly, for those who bought the hype, it's since down some 50% as a result of Cyberpunk's reputation, which is catastrophic. A press release from Rosen Law Firm distilling the action reads in part, quote, 1. Cyberpunk 2077 was virtually unplayable on the current generation Xbox or PlayStation systems due to an enormous number of bugs. 2. As a result, Sony would remove Cyberpunk 2077 from the PlayStation Store, and Sony, Microsoft, and CD Projekt would be forced to offer full refunds for the game. 3. Consequently, CD Projekt would suffer reputational and pecuniary harm. And 4. As a result, defendants' statements about its business operations and prospects were materially false and misleading and/or lacked a reasonable basis at all relevant times. When the true details entered the market, the lawsuit claims the investors suffered damages, end quote. For its part, CD Projekt told its investors in a call that it will, quote, undertake a vigorous action to defend itself, end quote, according to Gamma Sutra. An investor concern may be temporary. 10 days after release on December 20th, Cyberpunk had already surpassed a staggering 13 million copies sold, making its entire development and marketing budget back, and then some. So, interestingly, the first out of the gate in terms of class action suits is to protect the investors that invested on the Polish stock market in CD Projekt, which is a publicly traded company there. I don't know that there's too much to say about it because we're going to have to now wait to see what other litigants get on board. But are you surprised that this got out the gate before the inevitable class action suit against them from players? I assume this was more attractive to lawyers, but eventually there's going to be thousands of people that are going to want to sue CD Projekt for the game.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'll be real. Like, I'm not really that well versed in any of this, like, anything regarding like lawsuits and shit. Like this is all like alien to me. Like, oh, like the investors needed this. It's like, well, all right. I guess I'll trust whatever the hell's going on. But it is very. I will say that it's because on the outside anyway, to the layman, it would seem right that this would imply that CD Projekt of their own volition. Like, of their own volition as a development studio, decided to put out the game before it was ready, despite understanding the reputational harm that would cause. But
so what they're basically saying is that they juiced up the stock price by making promises that they couldn't keep, and then the juice was let out of the lemon when the game came out and people lost money. Because if you bought at the high and then it's down 50%, then you lost half of your investment right off the bat, And so no matter what your dividends are going to be, if you invested a lot of money, you're not going to get your money back anytime soon.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but it seems strange from the outside perspective because you would assume that a game that is pushed out before it's ready is literally all to do with investor demand in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, that is typically the colloquial understanding of that. Because why would a dev do that otherwise? I
guess the claim that they make in the Rosen lawsuit, and who knows if it's true or not. They say that they're going to defend themselves. I'm sure that they're going to, is that they're saying that because specific executives are named.
Yeah.
That they basically had a financial interest, and they obviously do. They all have options, I'm sure. So they have a massive interest in driving the price up, because then they can sell their securities at a higher price
Right.
if they wanted to. So it's what they're alleging is pretty serious, and that would get you that would be an arrestable offense, I would assume, if that's true. That's not just a civil thing. So it's a pretty serious claim, and it's much more serious than what we're going to get from the class action suit, which is just going to be people wanting their money back.
Yeah.
Which is still going to cost them millions of dollars. And I think that's why Sony came out and removed the game, because they don't want to be named as a litigant. Because they'll just be like, listen, even if they're named, they'll go and represent themselves and be like, we should be removed from this. We removed the game from our service like 2 days after it came out. So this is all going to ramp up soon.
Yeah.
And I'll be interested to see how this all goes for them.
Yeah, but then there's certification in the first place that allowed the game to come out in an unplayable state anyway, like on those platforms. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
what, like
it's because certification is not about the playability of the game,
I guess.
Mostly, which is crazy, but it's true.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It's more about like if a trademark sign is in the right place, and if the game doesn't, it's literally some of it's like, does the game like not brick your PS4? Check.
Right.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff.
There should be a subsect of that is playability though.
Well, I agree, and that would go back to what I've been saying for years about getting some of these games off of PSN.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quality control.
Even if you had some sort of council, of people that just they just sat at their desks and they just got the games, and they didn't beat them, but dude, if I played Life of Black Tiger for 10 minutes, I can be like, this game sucks. I don't need to play it for 5 hours. So no, I could have written that up and told you in a day and been done. We could have avoided that game being on there, but that's not what Sony wants to do. They want you to buy bad games too. All right, number 3. I'm interested to see what you think of this. Outriders has been delayed. The third-person shooter RPG from developer People Can Fly was first supposed to come out in 2020, though it has been pushed back, pushed to February 2nd, 2021. According to publisher Square Enix, it will now come to both PS4 and PS5 on April 1st. The announcement of this move was somewhat peculiar. It reads in part, quote, "We believe it's important that players get to experience a new IP like Outriders before release, so that you can decide for yourselves whether the game is something you wish to pre-order, purchase, or play. For this reason, we're excited to announce that on February 25th, 2021, we will be publishing a free demo, giving everyone the chance to play the first few hours of the game," end quote. All character classes will be available, and your save will carry over to the final game on April 1st. Outriders was originally announced at E3 in 2019 and will be People Can Fly's first original game since 2013's Gears of War Judgment. They were, of course, an internal Epic studio for a while, and they worked on Fortnite and others.
Yeah, they made
they're best known for Bulletstorm.
Right? Yeah.
Right. And then they did Gears 4, right? And Gears Judgment.
No, they did Gears of War Judgment. Because Gears 4 was Coalition, and so
Coalition,
5
right?
As well.
Okay.
Judgment
gotcha.
though is the worst one. So, I mean,
I don't know that I even played it. I might have. I don't know. If I was at IGN, I probably
played it. It was not particularly good, but yeah, no, I like this. Anything that brings demos back in any conceivable way, I'm all for. I think this is just like a very consumer friendly thing. It speaks honestly to a pretty decent amount of confidence on their part to just give away that much of their game for free. From what I've seen, it just sort of looks like a Destiny Warframe kind of clone. So I'm a little curious as to where that confidence comes from, because it's not something that looks particularly that interesting to me. But I mean, that's pretty like, I appreciate the hell out of that. You know, demos are hard to come by now.
It's funny because I think that this shows. I disagree with you a little bit in the fact that I think that this shows that they are worried about the game. Well, look who's publishing it, first of all, Square Enix. And they just got burnt to the tune of $65 million on the Avengers game. I think that they probably were looking at this and being like, first of all, they can see the pre-order numbers. They're probably really bad. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no one gives a shit about this game. And the only way we're going to salvage it is to make it free and do some sort of gated 5-hour demo that then lets you take the save over in a Final Fantasy 14 like manner or something like that, and bring it over and play the final version. To me, I think it says that they're like really worried about it. They might not be worried about it from a quality standpoint, but I'd be worried about it.
Yeah,
I'd be very worried about it.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think divorced from the context, you could read it in either way. Like if you had like if Bungie was putting out a game and it was like, hey, listen, this is a new IP from Bungie. We're gonna have a 6-hour demo or whatever the hell. Yeah, that's a different story than what people can fly having a couple hour demo. I guess that is a good point.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. It could be like a very wily move to be like, this is like a guerrilla marketing kind of thing for us, which is smart. I mean, you kind of sacrifice money on the front end for pre-orders to get people on the back end, which is wise. But I just think Square Enix is probably like, this was not a wise investment for us to make 3 or 4 years ago. This game is going to bomb and we need to do something about it. And I imagine it's going to be another game that drags their bottom line down. And I don't think the game looks bad. And I hope I'm wrong about it, but this space is just
it's
how many times do you have to say when you make you make these decisions 4 years before the game comes out? You have to know or have to have some sort of prescience about what the market's going to look like, because when the investment comes out the other end of the Wonka fucking chocolate machine, then it's too late.
Yeah.
Like no one cares.
Yeah.
That's why I was so happy that Housemarque abandoned Stormdivers, because I'm like, that's going to be the end of you.
Mm-hmm.
And they were wise enough to know that. So
yeah, no, I think you've swayed me. That makes sense. I totally forgot. Like I genuinely forgot that it was Square. Square, and it totally like blanked out of my head immediately after you read it that it was Square. As Square Enix often does in my mind. To be fair. But
I think they were pretty amped about this 1-2 punch 2 years ago.
Yeah, probably.
And I think that they're not very happy about it now. And I wish that they thought Final Fantasy 16 was going to come out any sooner than 2024 or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
turn
see
my
here.
light on because it's getting dark over here now.
Oh, yeah, please.
A little dark.
Ooh. Wow.
I don't know if that's any better, but
No, it looks great. I mean, we're using Riverside like we said, and you look fine. But it says in the corner, the recordings look and sound much better than what you see live.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what I look like. Who cares? All right. Number 4. Oh, this one's, we'll see what you think of this one. Number 4. There are rumblings from Japan that a Tenchu revival might be in the works for PlayStation 5, though closer examination of the source material indicates that's not quite true yet, but could be soon. As reported by multiple sources, including website Gamatsu, famous Japanese gaming magazine Famitsu conducted an interview with Takuma Endo, the president of Acquire. Acquire is a Japanese studio that's best known for its Tenchu franchise of third-person ninja games that began on PS1 in the form of Tenchu Stealth Assassins in 1998. Tenchu has been dormant since the 2009 PSP game Shadow Assassins, though Acquire also owns and operates the Way of the Samurai series, begun on PS2 in 2002, the Shinobito franchise, begun on PS2 in 2005, and the quirky Akiba's Trip franchise, which began on PSP in 2011. In the interview, however, Endo merely states that he and his team, quote, would like to make a stealth ninja game from the ground up for the PlayStation 5 generation, end quote, if given the opportunity, and thus they've trademarked Stealth Assassins in various locales around the world. Kenneth Ohms wrote in and said, hello, gentlemen. Thoughts on the potential Tenchu revival by Acquire? The president of the company told Famitsu that he wanted to revive the franchise and build it from the ground up for PS5. Chris, do you think this will scratch your stealth game itch? You're a Tenchu fan, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself like a fan. Like I wasn't like ingratiated in the world of Tenchu or anything. But like I've played a handful of Tenchu games, like on and off. I borrowed them from cousins and like friends and stuff like that because my parents wouldn't buy me anything with swords in them. I remember that was like a key thing. It was like, you can't have that, but for some reason guns were fine.
It's interesting. Yeah. Well, they didn't want you to get stabbed. Stabbing is more brutal.
I guess so. Yeah, I'd rather come face to face with like a gun than like a wily guy with a katana.
Right. That's scary as shit.
Yeah.
Remember the guy that was on QVC that was hitting the sword on the desk and it snapped. We're gonna need emergency surgery in the studio.
Something about people who own swords or multiple. That's a concerning individual. But no, yeah. I remember I played. Ironically, like it was some of my favorite memories with Tenchu are from like I think the most hated game in that series. I think it's Tenchu Z that was not reviewed very well. But like at the time,
it's an Xbox 360
game.
But
at the time, I remember playing it and I was like, oh, this is like kind of cool. Like I like this aesthetic and it just felt really cool to just have that freedom and that that tone to it, and Sekiro really scratched that itch for me too, in a lot of ways. In more ways than one, it feels like it feels that Sekiro is kind of a Tenchu game as it is already. So yeah, no, I'm totally into it. I will say though, like, I don't know if it's going to scratch the stealth itch for me. It's going to scratch like the ninja itch, which is, always a good itch to be scratched. But stealth is like very particular. Stealth, I think, is very inherently modern. It's inherently a little bit techy. Like, I want to have like a camera that I can shove under a door and like look around and I want to be able to remote EMP and like stuff like that. Like, I like the Splinter Cell school of and then the Metal Gear school of stealth more than I care for the sneaking around in like colonial US in Assassin's Creed 3, which is just more about like the surroundings and more about like tailing people than it is about actual stealth.
Did you ever play the Shinobito games that they did?
No,
by chance.
I didn't play
I was kind of always confused because I always was like, Shinobito is Tenchu. I don't understand what the difference is between these two games that are like almost the same thing to me. I'd always thought that there was like some sort of IP issue, but I guess they own Tenchu. And like you said, Sekiro was supposed to be a Tenchu game, so it's not like it's just inspired by it. And you can obviously see that, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. No, the second I saw it for the first time, I was like, that's Tenchu.
It must be that. You know what? Tenchu might be owned by Activision, and that's why they trademarked Stealth Assassins, which might not be. I don't know. Maybe I'll look into this more. We don't have to do it live. We don't have to do this one live. All right. Number 5. Sony has revealed January's free PlayStation Plus games, and they're available for you to download right now. PlayStation 5 players will receive Man-Eater, the surprisingly well-liked open-world shark game from developer Tripwire Interactive that first came out in 2020. It's important to note that Man-Eater is also available on PlayStation 4 and that version will not be available. So you cannot get the PS4 version of the game, only the PS5 version. Speaking of open-world games, PS Plus subscribers will receive PlayStation 4's Greedfall. Greedfall is an open-world action RPG from developer Spiders and first came to PS4 in 2019. A native PS5 release is planned for 2021, though it isn't clear if redeeming this version will get you that version for free. Last up this month is the Eidos Montreal developed and Square Enix published Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which was a fall 2018 launch on PlayStation 4. It's also the last Tomb Raider game thus far. As always, even if you don't intend on playing any of these games now, you may change your mind later, so redeem them from the PlayStation Store this month if you're a Plus subscriber. Oh, and if you bought Man-Eater in the last month or so, keep an eye out, as you may get an automatically processed refund as reported around the internet. Did you see that Sony just started sending people Man-Eater refunds if they bought the game in like the last month?
Why? What's up with that?
Because my assumption is because they anticipate like we don't even want to deal with this shit. It seems like it's the same thing that happened with Cyberpunk, just to a lesser degree, where they're like, fine, we're just taking it off the store. It's cheaper for us to not deal with this.
Wow.
And I felt like they did. Yeah, so I thought that was a pretty nice pro-consumer thing for Sony to do. So Andrew Dixon wrote in and said, hey, CNC, and hopefully D. D's not here this week. We got some other D for you, but not the D that you're looking for. I was pumped to see a solid offering of PS Plus games after last month's week showing. That being said, it confused me to see Man-Eater offered exclusively on PS5. I get that they want to add value, but does it strike you as strange to choose a PS4 game with a ray tracing upgrade over a native PS5 title? Thanks for the treasure trove that is Last Stand Media, and I hope your Patreon grows exponentially after all you've given us. Thank you, Andrew. So I was thinking about this, Chris. I don't remember this ever happening before. They used to not promote it, but you would be able to usually, like, for instance, PS3 Vita games. They wouldn't say, like, oh, this is also available on Vita, or this is also available on PS3, but it was just kind of a given. I don't remember them ever specifically isolating a version of the game. Although with PS5, this is new. We've not been doing this so far. Did you find that peculiar as well?
Not necessarily. Not the isolating factor. I think it's a lot more clear that PS5 and PS4 are different platforms, more so than Xbox Series X and Xbox One. Where like if they did that kind of thing on Xbox One, I would be confused because so much of those two ecosystems are shared and identical. That it would be weird to have just this arbitrary division for like no reason other than just kind of covering a company's ass. But with PS5 and PS4 being so different, both in aesthetics, functionality, and I assume even on the back end, I don't know. It makes sense to me to maybe be like, hey, this is the PS4 has way more available because it's been around for a longer time. We don't have much on PS5 right now. I'll tell you the reason why you're not getting a native PS5 title is because there aren't really many.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm thinking
just
too, is that no one took their offer.
Yeah, like what are you gonna? I don't know what you could possibly really do about that, aside from like just you can't just will things into existence. You're not me, But I don't know.
You aren't or they aren't. You are you.
I am.
You
me.
are you, as far as I understand.
As far as I understand. But I don't know. I don't think it's that weird, honestly. I think they really are just scrounging for things to find to put on PS Plus, and it's probably harder to do now that it's so distinctly different from its previous generation. I think Xbox is having a bit of an easier time with this because they're so intertwined with each other as far as the storefronts go and all that stuff. But I don't know.
Yeah, there aren't that many PS5 games yet.
Yeah.
And they probably wanted to give away a AAA game. And I'm sure Tripwire took the money, and Maneater probably did way better than they thought it was going to do anyway. I'm really excited to play it. It looks fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I'm just not there yet. So sorry I keep shifting around, by the way. I shift around all the time.
No, it's fine. It's normal. I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah, my back hurts so bad. I don't know why. I don't do anything.
That's probably why your back hurts.
What can my... It's like I got a Danganronpa injury from laying in the wrong way in bed while I was watching, Karen videos on YouTube and playing Danganronpa. Now, he did bring up something else that I wanted to ask you about, Chris, which was, what do you think of the quality of the lineup? Because when I saw the games of the lineup, I'm like, this is an awesome lineup of games. This is a very, very good top tier, I would even say, PS Plus lineup of games. Again, Maneater, Greedfall, and then Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Do you agree, or do you want something more?
I think it's upper mid tier. I would say. I think it's not bad, and I wouldn't have much to complain about. But what do you think the best? What do you think the most top tier month was in the last several?
Oh.
Because there was one month that I remember was a particularly good one. And I've been
your PlayStation.
I've been comparing every month to that month as far as my initial gut reaction, and nothing's really quite reached. I wish I could remember the game specifically. I only remember the feeling of being like, that's a good month.
Yeah. All right. So there's a Wikipedia. I thought that there might be something here. So wait, what is this? The section of the PlayStation Plus games. Oh, this is for 2020. Oh, I see. Okay. So in December, it was Worms Rumble, Just Cause 4, and Rocket Arena. The month before was Shadow of War and Hollow Knight. That's pretty good.
That's a pretty good one.
And Bug Snacks. That's pretty good. The month before October was Vampire and Need for Speed Payback. So they got something going on with Focus Home Interactive because Vampire appeared and then now Greedfall appears. I guess maybe the Fall Guy was in August. That was huge.
Yeah.
Because that game was so big. But I would say, just looking at the lineups myself, this is all obviously subjective. I would say this is the strongest lineup in, in February 2020, BioShock Collection, Sims 4, Firewall for PSVR. That's probably the last time that there was a
that's a
well-rounded
that's a
month,
pretty good one,
I would say.
But yeah, I don't know. This one's fine. Nothing in it particularly speaks to me. I think Maneater is the most interesting thing. I've seen Greedfall and I've seen what is this other one?
It's Greedfall, Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Right. I played Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and
yeah, me too.
On a quality standpoint, I think this is a pretty good one. It's just not all that exciting. Maneater is obviously the one that I'm probably most interested in because it just looks ridiculous as a premise, but I think it's a fine month. I wouldn't find much to complain about, especially just considering how early this is in the new life cycle of the console. There's really not much on the store even. I remember just browsing through the store and I'm like, I went through the whole store already. And I just haven't
there's nothing there. It's kind of nice because I that's the thing, Chris. I didn't feel any pressure this holiday season. I'm just like, there's no because even when there's no Cyberpunk, really, I don't know what's coming out for the next few months that I'm even really that excited about until Returnal. I don't know. I got all the time in the world.
Yeah,
I got all the time enough at last. And then I step on my glasses. So I gotta say, Greedfall looks dope. The whole premise of Greedfall is super cool. Mm-hmm. That you're going to an island to tame it, you're a colonial officer. It's pretty. I can see why that would offend people, but I think it looks
No, it does look cool.
super cool. So I'm excited.
I like the colonial aesthetic. I'm always reminded of Assassin's Creed 3 when I think of colonial video game. I can't help it. I think it's pretty much the only other game that's really like that. Even still,
at least in the third-person action realm, yeah. Like you'd have to go to like the the grand simulation and strategy stuff to find any of that
Civilization.
Stuff, I think. Yeah. Oh, well, there goes Rush. All right, let's see here. Did we read this
Number 6?
one? Oh, no, we didn't. Corn Tool wrote into us. And like Corn and Tool, the bands. Says, sup guys, I noticed that some of the past few PS Plus games have also been games that are already on PS Now. Games like Vampire, Hollow Knight, and Greedfall. Also, if I'm not mistaken, I think Shadow of the Tomb Raider is too. I think it's kind of dumb for those who pay for both services. Maybe they should just combine the both of them. What do you think of this decision by PlayStation? Thanks for all the great content. We've talked about the whole combination thing. We don't have to talk about that now. I'm more curious if you think it's weird that there are PS Plus games appearing for free that are also available ostensibly for free on PS Now for a subscription. I don't think it's that weird, mostly because PS Now is used by almost nobody compared to PS Plus. I would say it's probably somewhere along the lines of like 20 to 1. So they don't give a shit if they're doubling up on games, since 19 out of 20 people are not going to know. So that's my answer. But do you think it matters? Do you think it's weird?
No, I agree with you. I don't think it's all that weird. I think they're two separate things, and I think they appeal to two different kinds of audiences. Sure, if you own both subscription services, that might be a little bizarre, and you might feel like a little shortchanged. But I feel like both services, because you're not paying like $50 a month, for these things. So you're probably just kind of taking what you're getting, and PS Now is you're not paying necessarily for like one specific game that's on PS Now. When you pay for PS Now, you're kind of paying for the Netflix thing, where it's like you're just paying to have this subscription that you can reliably stream a lot of content from. It's less about the specific things that are on there, at least from on their end. I'm sure people buy it for like specific things, like, oh, that's on PS Now, maybe I'll pick it up. And I'm sure people subscribe to Netflix for specific shows. But once those specific shows are done, or once you finish that game that you've been wanting to stream on PS Now you just have now you're paying for a subscription to something that lets you stream shit. And PS Plus is like a completely different thing, because I'm pretty sure you own those things and you download them natively. Like they are different technically, and they're different enough and sparse enough in their offerings where the overlap isn't all that obvious or all that common, that I don't think it's all that bizarre.
No, and I also think the question kind of begs the answer of, it would be more relevant if what you were paying for with PlayStation Plus was only free games, but that's actually not. But I would say actually for most people, what they're paying for is online gameplay. The free games is secondary. And for me, actually, the most important thing is the cloud saving. So it's a whole litany of services that I think are relevant.
Yeah.
And so I just think you're kind of comparing apples and oranges. But speaking of PlayStation Now, number 6, PlayStation Now, Sony's streaming service, has received some new notable games in its library. The biggest game of the bunch is The Crew 2, the Ubisoft developed and published racing game first launched on PS4 in mid-2018. Two other notable entries, according to Sony, are Surviving Mars and Frostpunk Console Edition. Surviving Mars, launched in early 2018 from Bulgarian studio Havamont, is a city-building sim, while Frostpunk Console Edition, first on PS4 in late 2019, is a survival game. Sony's PS Now costs $9.99 a month or $59.99 a year in the US, and currently includes more than 800 games across PS2, PS3, and PS4. And then finally, number 7 is a wrap-up, a brief one this week, Chris.
Yeah.
Website Gamatsu reports Chinese-developed action RPG Anno Mutanium, I think I'm saying that right, has been delayed on PlayStation 4 and will now launch during the third quarter of this year. So that's one of the Chinese announced games that were revealed. It's almost here. It will also get a native PlayStation 5 release, which is good news. Website Persona Central reports that 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, the aforementioned Vanillaware in their surprising visual novel, has surpassed 300,000 copies sold, so congratulations to them. And it appears Ubisoft's Immortals Phoenix Rising is getting its first DLC pack in the form of A New God, purportedly launching on PSN for both PS4 and PS5 on January 21st. So that's it for the news.
Okay.
And now we get into the intriguing games of the week. Now, I kind of copped out this week because there's really very little of note coming to PlayStation Store.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, what I put for myself here, and we can both kind of go off of this if we want,
Yeah.
is there's a really awesome holiday sale going on right now. And so I just wanted to alert some people to a few things that they might be interested in. First of all, big AAA games like Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us are severely discounted, I think like 40%. I also noticed for you, Chris, that Destiny 2 Beyond Light is 15% off. But in the new sale, I bought a bunch of totally random shit, like Final Fantasy games. And I bought I didn't tell anyone this. I bought Final Fantasy 14, the complete edition, like the Realm Reborn with all the DLC for $30 in the sale.
That's pretty good.
So yeah, so there's a lot of really good stuff there. So instead of just telling you to look for some random game, I want people to really go and check out this sale, because sales are rarely this steep as they are this time of year, November, December, January. So is there anything you wanted to double up on there before we?
So I was in kind of the same boat as you. I was looking through things and I was like, there's really nothing here that's catching my eye, but some stuff on the sale did. And one thing in particular that I would highly, highly recommend, Bayonetta and Vanquish 10th anniversary bundle is like $20 right now. That's like a 50% discount on it's usually like a $40 game. And you could get both of them for $20. Those are both great games. Vanquish, I think, is sincerely underrated. And Bayonetta is great. So like it's kind of a no-brainer, in my opinion. But one thing I did notice was I'm on the PlayStation Store website right now, and there's a game called Good Dog, Bad Dog, and it's available for either $24.99 or $4. So
is it like a DLC pack with all their bullshit?
No,
in it?
it's the same exact game. It's not just, hey, this game is usually $24. It's discounted 80%. It's literally like on the website, two separate games, the same game, one for $25 and one for $4. So
it's like a social experiment to see if anyone buys it.
Yeah,
you know? Like people are saying, doesn't Sony or Microsoft occasionally put up a game on accident for $10,000? Like that, like people report on that every so often.
I don't know. I'm gonna take a screenshot of this though, because I think it's very, very amusing.
You should. We did get a question here from Alan Gonski. He says, "Hello, CC, DM, and K. I think you're way overestimating who's going to be on the show." He says, "Why is it that the store on the PS5 is hot garbage? Not saying the PS4 storefront was all that great, but there is no useful information on the store page as a whole. Compare this to the Xbox store and it is night and day. So my question is simple. How would you fix the PS5 store?" My whole thing is just use the web store. I know that that's such a cop-out at this point, but the PS5 store is bad. I was using it the other day and I'm like, why am I having so much trouble with this console? Am I becoming actively stupider? Maybe. I don't know for sure, but I'm really struggling, and I find that the PlayStation Store website is just the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
As we just proved, by the way, by just scrolling through it and looking at everything in 2 seconds. So
yeah,
I don't know how else I would design it. I don't care. Just they need to redesign the UI.
Yeah, this is something that I hope happens this year. I really sincerely hope that there's like a pretty major UI redesign, because I feel like the UI is so close to being pretty good. Like I actually like the store only because it's fast, but the second you get over the quickness of it, it becomes very clear that it's still a remarkably cumbersome thing. So yeah, I really don't know even how I would fix it, but luckily that's not my job. So
no,
hopefully the UI designers over there know what they're doing. Hopefully the UI is as weird as it is because they couldn't get it into the hands of people before earlier on in the year because of the pandemic or whatever the hell. They couldn't get proper feedback. I'm gonna hope that that's the case, but the UI needs some work. Not even just the store. I just mean like from overall. Like I don't know why the icons are so small too. Does that bother you? It kind of bothers me.
Yeah,
the icons are just like weirdly small.
There's so much that bothers me. I feel like I'm being nitpicky in some way.
Yeah,
you know?
It feels
like where I'm hesitant to even talk about it.
Yeah, it feels mean only because it's so much faster, you know. And it's like, oh, I love this. This is so fast. But also, what am I clicking?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that was horrifying. I didn't like that at all. Holy shit. You're like I'm missing a chromosome. All right. Let's see here. Reader mail. Listener mail. I don't know why we call it reader mail. This is when we end each episode of our show. 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the Patreon audience at patreon.com/laststandmedia. It's a nice way for us to wrap things up. Ian wrote into us and said, "Hey, Last Stand crew. First of all, I'm so proud of you guys for nailing the new direction and evolution of the company. Thank you. My question, though, is how have we gotten this far without mentioning that the sound effect for popping a trophy changed with the launch of PS5? Surely this is big news, no? Either way, much love. Thanks for all the content. Defining Duke is cemented into my weekly rotation, even though I don't currently and don't plan on ever owning a Series X. Good content is good content, and you guys deliver." Well, a lot of people say that about this show, too, that are Xbox fans. So that's a good compliment. Thank you for that. So the bigger story here is not that the trophy sounds changed, per se. It's that you can customize your trophy sounds now. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about that yet. Developers can give you a special sound for like a platinum and do all of that, and I don't think it's been fully explored yet. So, Ian, the texture of the trophy ecosystem on PS5 has just been explored in a very cursory way. The bigger thing I was thinking about, though, when I was playing my PS3 the other day, and then I actually started doing little scientific experiments with it, was the PS3, PS4, and PS5 all make the same exact indistinguishable sound of startup sound. Like if I just was like, I'm going to start in sequence, the 3 consoles, you don't know what sequence they're going to be in. You would never be able to tell me which ones I was turning on in order. And I was like, I don't think I ever realized that that's kind of like a continuity thing in and of itself. Like I thought that they were all similar, but they're not. They're the same. But the trophies sounds are changing. This obviously doesn't matter to you very much, though.
I don't know. Like I've never necessarily cared that much about trophies, but like I remember when I was getting into achievements during the 360 days, I really did kind of fall in love with that sound, like the pop of the achievement. I was like, oh, this is I love that. There's something about it. It's like I want to hear that more often. And with the Xbox One, they did what they did here, basically. Like they changed the sound entirely. They changed kind of like the look of things entirely. And I remember immediately, when I got my Xbox One, I was like, oh, I don't care about achievements now. Like, because it's just not the same. It's like you're conditioned to really like a specific sound, and then it changes, and you're like, this doesn't. It's a very nitpicky thing, but I remember being like, I genuinely don't care to hear this ever again, because it's just something. It just doesn't it makes me feel weird that it's not.
It's like Pavlov's bell.
Yeah, it's exactly exactly Pavlov's bell, and I think it also probably helps that I obviously played the 360 in, the tail end of junior high into high school, particularly formative, I would guess. So like once once I got into college and I was using this new machine, I was like, this doesn't feel right. It feels wrong. So I do understand like that is a huge thing. I'm surprised. Like I didn't notice it because the PlayStation trophy sound never was like, it didn't really hit that same bell because it just didn't get to me first. It really is just an order of sequence, I feel like. But that is a pretty huge deal, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people feel kind of off-put by it, like I did.
Yeah, I didn't. I noticed when I platinum Bug Snacks that the platinum noise was totally different. I was like, what the hell? And then so it was a nice little surprise, just a nice little something different, I guess. But I don't know that it matters to me too much. Although I will say, to their credit, it's cool to kind of change things up and give people some more options, and I'm never gonna be mad about that. But it seems like I said, because they buried trophies so far into the UI, that maybe they're not as important as they once were. Although I did hear from someone else saying that they're more important than ever. And either way, I'll say that it's nice to just have earned trophies immediately when you earn them, which was never a problem on Xbox. But on PS3, people will remember that the trophy system was so lagged behind the game that it would sometimes take like 15 or 20 seconds, and you didn't really know if you popped the trophy or did what you were supposed to do until it was like all over.
That happened.
So when I was playing,
that did happen.
When I was playing
Xbox.
Bioshock Infinite, I was like, oh my god, like I forgot.
That did happen on Xbox sometimes, in fairness.
The worst. And then every once in a while, it would not show up because you didn't do the thing, and you were like really crestfallen.
Dude, it would be scary sometimes. Like if like you just did something insanely hard. You spent like 5 hours with like friends coordinating something. You're like, oh, this like multiplayer achievement. We finally did it. And then like you're in the menu for like 40 seconds, and then and it's like, oh,
yeah,
God,
and then
thank
it pops
God,
up.
thank Christ. And sometimes,
sometimes
because because on the 360, the friends online thing was the same as the achievement. Sometimes you'd like do something and then like your friend would come online and he's like, God damn it, stop. And then your achievement would pop and you'd just like be spending time looking at your friend's name in like absolute terror and suspense. Fun.
I don't even know what would happen if you had a PSN friend sign in at the same time you got a trophy. PS3 probably shut down. All right. Kate O'Brien wrote into us and said, hello, Last Stand crew. Does it feel like Sega is the next major gaming publisher to have a resurgence? We've seen Capcom over the past few years, and it's starting to feel like Sega is moving in that direction. Atlas continues to reign supreme in the JRPG scene. Yakuza has begun to grow in popularity. Phantasy Star Online 2 is getting an update, and it seems like they are treating Sonic treating Sonic with more care. Just seems like they are turning a corner. What say you? As always, keep it high and tight. Yeah, it does seem like that. Seems like Sega's in great shape right now. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think they're in a pretty good shape. I think Yakuza is their biggest boon right now. I think Yakuza is just such a it's such a niche thing that's also just so widely known. I think because there was that meme a couple months ago too with the I'm sure you've seen those, like the what is it, the deep fakes of like people's photographs singing that Japanese song.
Yeah. You did one of you.
I didn't do that. I would never do that. I don't even know how to do that. Like that is beyond my pay grade in any amount of tech oriented shit. But no, I think Yakuza is a big deal for them. I think Phantasy Star. I don't know. The last time I played a Phantasy Star game, it was not. I wasn't necessarily playing it because it was great. I was playing it because a lot of people were on and they were just saying weird shit in the social spaces. I just wanted to check it out. So I don't know what Phantasy Star Online 2 even really is. And I know Atlas does some good stuff, but like just Yakuza is the biggest thing for them. And I think they could be on the cusp of a pretty huge resurgence. The question though is, will it be a Capcom resurgence? Because Capcom really, like, that was a really huge deal. Like, because Capcom was outright bad for a while. Like, Sega just sort of existed. Like, they didn't necessarily put out anything, like, offensively terrible. They just sort of, like, they were just kind of in the background not doing anything, and now they're just sort of, you know, putting stuff out that's kind of cool and capturing people's attention. So I don't know if it'll be as drastic as that whole Capcom turnaround. But there's definitely a turnaround happening.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, I don't think the stakes are as high for them because I don't think they're as low as Capcom was, and I don't think they're going to get as high as Capcom is either because they don't need that kind of momentum. But you're right, Yakuza's huge. It's really been interesting to see how much that's come on in the last few years, and now that they've migrated the games off of PlayStation, they have a bigger audience than ever. And then of course Persona 5 was huge, and the Sonic movie, let's not forget, was also huge. And
that's true.
So they have some stuff going on, and I'm very pleased for Sega.
Yeah.
We'll keep rooting for them.
I'm actually looking into probably, like, I think after Immortals, I'll probably try a Yakuza. Because it's getting to the point where it's like it's so ubiquitous now, and it's like I should probably figure out what the hell this is just for my own sake.
I was talking to Micah about it because she's a huge fan, and she's trying to get me to play Like a Dragon, which is the role-playing game one, and I'm like, I just feel like such a poser just jumping in the Yakuza like so late. I feel like I need to go back, and then it's just never going to happen. You know, it's never going to happen. And I just get such heavy Shenmue vibes from it, even though I know that's not fair, that I can't but help. And by the way, Shenmue also a Sega
But
game,
it looks like Shenmue done right, though. You know what I mean? Like it looks like Yakuza does what Shenmue tries to do. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's a much higher quality, but yeah, for sure. With the benefit of more technology and more knowledge in gaming, I think. What was Yu Suzuki, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the Shenmue guy. I think he would have been able to execute better. Shenmue 3 almost just came and went. Like no one even talks about it. All right. Carmine Meal wrote in and said, "Hey CNC, this is a question for Colin. Just wanted to know why your excitement for Final Fantasy 16 seems to be so high if you never finished and or played Final Fantasy 15. If my memory serves me right, I don't recall you finishing or even really putting too much time into the game. Is it the style of the new game that is getting you excited, or was Final Fantasy 15's setting, premise, etc. not really your cup of tea? Thank you for all that you guys do. Your podcasts have taken precedence over all other podcasts I consume."
Hell yeah.
Be well. That's right. That's right.
That's right.
So, I don't know that I really even agree with the premise. Final Fantasy is so expansive that there's obviously going to be games in the series that don't talk to me. And Final Fantasy X is a notable game, but Final Fantasy 11 and 14 are games I've not played yet. I didn't like Final Fantasy 13, and Final Fantasy 15 I played for 5 hours. I just wasn't into it. I think you said it, Carmine. I think Final Fantasy 16 setting and its more fantasy-oriented slanting, I think, is very exciting. And I just think it looks really good. I'm just really excited about it. Plus, Final Fantasy VII Remake, being one of my favorite games of 2020, has me just amped up about the possibilities. So, I don't know. I don't think it's that weird that I'm excited about it, but maybe it is. Maybe it's weird. I don't know. Brett Medlock, wrote in and said, "Hey, CC, why is Xbox so bad at marketing? Did you know games like Skate 3, Witcher 2, Red Dead Redemption, Fable 1 through 2 and 3, the Gears trilogy, Left 4 Dead, Half-Life 2, and lots more are basically got exclusive remasters on Xbox. They're playable in 4K with HDR support on Series X. Games like Final Fantasy 13 and Sonic Generations are stunning. Why are they not screaming this from the rooftops? Virtually everyone I tell had no idea it's even a thing. And I'm not talking about the auto enhancements from playing on the new hardware. These games were actually touched up by a dev team. They're basically remasters in the same vein as The Last of Us Remastered, and no one knows about them. Can't help but think if Sony did the same thing, it'd be screaming about it, and fans would be ecstatic." Thoughts? So I didn't know this, and I wanted to read this out because I was curious what your insight is. I'm a more Xbox-centric person.
Yeah.
What he's saying here basically that they remade these games on the level of The Last of Us being remade or remastered, I should say.
I don't know if that's necessary. I get what he's saying, but like I mentioned this I mentioned this on this podcast like probably like a while ago, like a year ago or more, when I was playing through Red Dead Redemption 1 again in preparation for Red Dead Redemption 2. And I played it on Xbox One X at the time, and I had mentioned the fact that like they touched it up and it's like remastered and it's like 4K and it looks really, really good. It's like surprising. They've been doing this for a while, and I think the reason why it doesn't stick out to people is because even when they hear about it, they kind of forget, because it's not like this isn't like a really that big of a deal. You don't really expect things to play better when you go back, and it's always like a nice surprise when they do. But I mean, I've mentioned this thing about Red Dead Redemption 1 on the podcast like before, and even I forgot about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is just weird that they're not marketing. I do agree with the notion that Sony probably would be making a bigger deal out of it, but I just don't know. See, my own ignorance of it kind of speaks to the fact that I guess it's not being properly portrayed to the wider audience, because it would just be another impressive thing for me that Microsoft is doing.
Yeah, I don't know. They made it. They did talk about it when it was happening. They were like, "Hey, these games play better on One X or whatever the hell. That you can play all these old games at 4K or whatever the hell." I remember the day that Halo 3 on disc got a 4K update, and I was just like, I can't even fathom how that's even possible. But they did it, and I remember being like, that's pretty impressive. But at the same time, they put a 4K version of Halo 3 on disc that's backwards compatible, but like the Master Chief Collection exists, So it's like, it's one of these things where it's like, yeah, it's better, but it's also, these are old games that people, you know what it is? It's like, I have a feeling like when people play these old games on the new hardware, they're going to look exactly how you thought they looked when you played them the first time. So it's not really this huge boon for marketing to be like, hey, do you remember how Left 4 Dead 1 looked? Well, it actually looks like kind of like slightly worse. And now it looks like kind of how you remember it looking. Isn't that cool? It's like, yeah, but also like,
that's funny.
How do you consolidate that into a sexy marketing term or how do you
smart delivery?
It is technically smart delivery, I guess. Yeah. That's kind of the point.
I suppose so.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a cool feature, but I don't necessarily think it's that big of a boon to sales or like or all that. It's not going to convince somebody to buy an Xbox Series X just because they can play Red Dead Redemption 1 at 4K. It's just not going to happen. And I don't even necessarily think that Sony would be talking that much about it if they could do that either. Because we've seen, what is it? There are games now that have kind of PS5 and PS4 versions, and it's the way they've handled that messaging is like really, really unclear and kind of muddled. So I don't know. It just seems like something that's cool, but also just kind of whatever.
I feel like Do you really want to play Final Fantasy 13 again? I don't know.
It's cool, man. Props to them for doing it, but like I just I can't see how they would even talk about this. Like honestly.
Well, let's
they are bad at marketing.
Easier then. Yes.
Independently of this.
True. Kyle Borchert wrote into us and said, "What's up, CNC? What PlayStation exclusive will have the highest Metacritic score in 2021? My money is on Horizon Forbidden West. What say you? And where do you see the year 2021 ranking in terms of game quality?" Let's not even get there yet. We don't even know what's coming out this year for sure. The claims would be Returnal, Ratchet and Clank, Horizon Forbidden West, and God of War Valhalla/Ragnarok. But we don't think God of War is actually going to come out this year. So I therefore think Horizon's the obvious answer. But wouldn't it be fucking dope if Returnal was in fact the answer? That it was like a hardcore darling I don't think is going to sell no matter what. But that would be like the dream Colin year.
I'm gonna say something kind of probably not expected. I think it's going to be Ratchet and Clank.
Oh,
and I think it's going to be Ratchet and Clank for one reason only, and it's because it's the only true PS5 game.
That's true. I mean, Returnal's on PC.
Yeah, Returnal. Well, I guess Returnal.
And that's.
But Returnal's on PC, and it's a Housemarque game, and Housemarque doesn't normally do this kind of thing. So I could expect Returnal being like 80s, you know, like. Wait
a minute, am I making that up about Returnal? I think I am making that up. No, Returnal's not on PC. It's only on PlayStation 5. Sorry, I made.
Is it PS5
Thank God
exclusive?
I corrected myself. It's only on PS5.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Well.
Yeah.
That changes things a little bit, but I do think. But I think based
it's a good bet that Ratchet will be better
I do
than
think
Returnal.
based on what we've seen, like Returnal doesn't look like it couldn't run on PS5. You know what I mean? Whereas Ratchet and Clank clearly can't run on PS4. And because of that, I feel like they're going to take advantage of a lot of cool things that we are not used to seeing being taken advantage of. Loading times, loading maps in particular. Like I'm still kind of impressed by what they showed. The last time they showed it off, when they were showing like the seamless transition between completely different worlds and play spaces, like that shit's really, really cool. And I feel like it's going to be a breath of fresh air, especially when, you know, Horizon and these other games are probably going to be just really good looking, fast loading games that ultimately could, and in some cases do run on previous gen hardware, and in some ways won't be as mind-blowing. And also I just think Ratchet's like super, super likable. It's not super controversial. I think it has a higher chance of really sticking the landing with more people. I think all these games are going to do well. I think all these games are going to be reviewed pretty well. But I think I would put money down on Ratchet and Clank being like a kind of like a surprising, like, oh, this is like a really, really good, like 9 out of 10 kind of thing.
That's the hope, man. It looks great. It's a great point. It could be any of them.
Yeah, could be.
We'll see what happens.
It'd be wild if it was Returnal. Returnal scored better than all of them.
Yeah, that would be wild, because that would mean it was a really great game and it was a really good year probably
now,
too.
Here's a question for you. I know you like Housemarque, and I know you're hoping for this game to do well. But is part of you kind of worried that if this does well, that you're never going to get like a classic Housemarque game again?
Yeah, I think it's kind of that's going to happen either way.
Right, that's fair.
Because I think that if they don't survive, if this game doesn't do well, maybe they don't survive it, and if the game does well, then they've successfully segued their arcade stylings to third-person action. The game's on Unreal Engine. I mean, it's totally weird. You know,
yeah,
it's very weird for them. So
it looks cool though.
I will say that I think they're all going to get above an 8.
I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah, we'll see. Chad Roberts wrote in with the final one, Chris, and this is more of an ode to you. He says, "Hey guys, don't really have a question per se, but just wanted to state that Chris has been 1,000% right about frames per second. I recently purchased Final Fantasy VII Remake since it's on sale, and I have to admit I'm having a hard time playing due to its locked 30 frames per second. It just feels so slow and sluggish in comparison to PS4 games that got upgrades for the PS5. I'm not questioning the quality of the overall game, but I think I'm going to wait until they release a PS5 version, or at least put out a patch so it runs at 4K 60. On a side note, I want to thank the Last Stand crew for the awesome work they put out. 2020 has been a hard year for me with COVID, losing family members, and having to say goodbye to my 12-year-old dog who was my best friend. You guys have helped me keep sane and smile even when it was hard to do. I'm sorry to hear that, Chad, but glad to hear that we're You're on the upswing, and then we're here for you. We're happy to be here for you. I just headbutted my microphone. So yeah, there's no question there. It's what I've been realizing too, and what I've been talking about, and that PS5 kind of instructed me on that you've been saying. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, no, it's a big difference, man. It's hard. It really is hard to go back. There are games that I adore that I couldn't. I have a hard time going back to, and it sucks in some ways because it's like, oh man, I would love to play this game again, but it really is like you just get spoiled by the smoothness of it, and just it just even feels more responsive because there's more frames informing like what you're doing, and it's a different, like I would argue it's like night and day in more ways than resolution is. Like I would argue like 1080p to 4K is less of a drastic change than 30 to 60. You know, it's such a transformative thing. And I think more and more people are going to realize that, and which is great because it means we're going to be seeing more developers cater to this understanding that players want this choice. They want to have the choice between like, hey, like give me like 4K, give me like ray tracing, give me all the crazy bells and whistles that a PC can offer, and also like, hey, you know what? Let me switch to these, high frame rate, really, really quick and really smooth experiences. And I think that's just better for all of us because it gives all of us more choice in the way that we play our games and in the way that we experience these cool little worlds.
Indeed. Very well said. Very well said indeed. And we'll end it there for this episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, episode 132, the very first on video.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you are watching us on video or listening to us on audio feeds, we appreciate you. And of course, support us on Patreon for early ad-free access, patreon.com/laststandmedia. Also exclusive access to Sacred Symbols Plus, which is the additional Patreon-only episode of the show we do each and every week. You can, of course, listen to Defining Duke, subscribe to that on podcast services, watch that on YouTube, Knockback, all the rest. Chris, it's good to see you. Thanks for a great first episode of 2021.
Yeah, we made through the hiccup pretty quick.
Yeah, no big deal.
I'm glad I noticed it earlier. Imagine if we just noticed.
Yeah, me too.
I would cry.
Yeah,
I would jump off a bridge.
I would kill myself.
Yeah.
See, that's an illustration of what we were talking about earlier. All right. Chris, thank you. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support. We'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. I'm looking at the camera now when I say this. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from Central Virginia and Burbank, California, USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun Maldonado. Sacred Symbols' executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.